All right, everybody. Today we're going to start with the Montgomery bus boycott. And this is where the famous Rosa Parks comes into play. As you can see here, the rule back then was that black people would have to give up their seat and move towards the back of the bus. Well, one woman, she said, I've had enough of this. I'm not giving up my seat. I'm not moving back any further. She was already in the seat right here. And a white person got on and said, All right, you need to go back further. She said, Screw you. I'm not giving up my seat. And said, Well, you can get arrested. She said, Well, arrest me. They arrested her. And as you can see, this is going to become a national headline. A guy by the name of Martin Luther King Jr., who's going to hear about this, is going to take advantage of this. He's going to get the NAACP involved. And what they are going to do is start a bus boycott where all African Americans decide not to use the bus. And as you can see, a lot of African Americans are using this bus, not so many white people. Now, this is one picture where it's probably a little bit jagged or kind of skewed as far as number wise. African Americans made up for 80% of the bus industry riders. And so that would be kind of like all of a sudden you have a job, you're making $100 a week, and then all of a sudden, well, now you're making only 20. And so the bus industry was taking a huge hit. They were hitting the bus industry in their pockets. And when businesses lose a lot of money, they have to change the rules. Now, in the meantime, a lot of African Americans, they were walking to work or doing whatever, carpooling, whatever they could do. And they were becoming targets of violence. A lot of people there in Montgomery were going around finding random people and just beating the crap out of them. A lot of these people were probably members of the KKK and different organizations such as that. One of the worst states is Alabama. The state that's the worst is Mississippi. When you get into that heart of the deep South, racism is just an everyday thing at that point in time. Luckily, all of this will be overturned as, you know, the government steps in and says this segregation on buses, just like in the schools, which we talked about last time, is unconstitutional. And that's a good thing because this is going to lead into other businesses and that are trying to discriminate against African Americans or other minorities, and they are going to get a huge push forward to fight racism at every aspect. Now, one of the leading industries as far as racism that was kind of late to be defeated was the golf industry. A lot of golf clubs could always say, well, you know what, you have to have a membership here. We have to approve that membership. And it really wasn't until recently we had Tiger Woods come and play and kind of defeat that as well. Now, some other interesting facts on Rosa Parks, as you can see here. She was born in Montgomery, Alabama. She stayed there her whole life and considered a good citizen. We know the story about not giving up a seat. She would later on move to Detroit. She will work with a lot of representatives, a lot of people trying to help the African American cause. Now, she was the first woman to be buried there at the Capitol, making that a very high honor. Without her taking that stance, I'm sure the civil rights movement may have been a little bit different. So let's go to our next guy, which we've already kind of talked about a little bit. Martin Luther King Jr. You can always go with MLK as him. Now, he's not the famous Martin Luther who did the 95 Thesis way back in the day when the split of the church was happening, but he is probably the more famous Martin Luther, and he has the King added on that, so go ahead and crown the man. He's a preacher, and so he looks at this whole idea of racism. Let's not fight violence for violence. Let's beat them with good old Christian love. When they smack us, we're going to turn the other cheek. We're going to do the things in which will become effective. He looks at this if we can gather the masses like Mahatma Gandhi did and make the South and other places in the country look bad for their racist views, then the American public's going to look at this and say, and this has got to stop. He believed in that nonviolent protest, and he was excellent at figuring out how to get the people to jump on board with this in massive numbers, do marches, protests, boycotts, whatever the case may be, and get these people to go forward out there with a lot of training, of course, and endure a lot of racism, pain. We've all probably seen the stories of the water hoses, the dogs. These people really put themselves on the front line to end or try to end racism. Like I said, we're still trying to deal with that today. He was also the leader of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, which again fight this racism with a lot of Christian love. He's going to lead a few very successful campaigns. His two most famous ones are going to be the Birmingham campaign and the March on Washington, which we'll talk both about these much later on. He is, of course, the most famous person during the Civil Rights Movement. We, as students and teachers, get a day off to celebrate his works and accomplishments, which is a good thing. Now, as I stated earlier, he was not the first guy who really bought into this idea of what is called nonviolent protest or civil disobedience. We have a very famous writer in American history known as Henry David Thoreau, who said if you know a law is wrong, don't follow it, break it. Go out there and find ways to do this. Do not follow bad laws. And then we got another guy who was inspired by him who said, look, all these laws in South Africa and in India, they are wrong. It's pretty much placing the Indian people or African people as second rate citizens to the British rule. And so Gandhi uses the masses, whereas Thoreau kind of gives them the idea to break these rules. If you see a massive amount of people breaking an unjust rule, then it's going to be common sense. Things need to change. And so Martin Luther King Jr. is going to do that. And he's going to create what we called earlier SCLC, Southern Christian Leadership Conference. This was created in 1957. MLK is the leader. Anybody could join. He, like Du Bois, figured that this was a national problem. He's going to allow whites to join, women to join, and they're all going to bring their own agendas. Women are trying to, achieve that wage gap. They're trying to fix a lot of things. The times were changing. They are going to use nonviolence. They're going to use the masses. They're going to make this not just a black problem, but an American problem. America has always been known as that melting pot where we all come together. Think about your culture. Your culture today, you probably listen to music done by white artists, black artists, different people from different countries. You probably listen to them. You're probably watching different types of TV. Some of the best actors that we have here in American culture, not even from here. They're from somewhere else. Think about your major shows. Things that you kind of just think are American are really a melting down of many cultures that have created a lot of different things. Your foods, for example. We eat a lot of different foods. And it'd be nice to go out there and get some different type of foods, but as we all know, we can't go sit in a restaurant or anything like that right now. So our next guy is going to be James Farmer. You can see James Farmer. He has an eye patch here. He lost his eyes to, I believe it was diabetes. Um, James Farmer also believed in that nonviolent action, and he's going to use it very successfully when he starts to organize a brand new movement known as the sit-in movements. And he's going to do that in a bunch of different restaurants. A lot of restaurants refused to pretty much serve anybody of color. And let me clarify, a person of color was anybody who wasn't white. So Hispanics, Asians, these are all people considered of color. He will also organize the Freedom Rides, which we'll talk more about later on. This guy eventually gets rewarded by President Clinton in the 90s for his works. And, he's one of these guys that you really didn't hear much about because he was kind of always working behind the scenes. And the main guy, as we already have seen, is going to be Martin Luther King Jr. So he's a key member to remember. Without his contributions and his ideas, particularly here in North Carolina about the sit-ins, really got a lot of things going. And that's a good thing. It got us closer to what we are today. And so, with our sit-in movement, this happened in the great state of North Carolina. These African Americans decided to go and sit at a bar right behind a Woolworths counter here in Greensboro, NC. And as you can see here, they're sitting there and saying, "Hey, we want to order some food. Please help us." And the guy is, the picture says a million words. He's ashamed. He's probably sad. He cannot serve these guys because he's trying to, probably keep his job. And jobs were hard to find for a lot of African Americans. And so they come in here on February 1st, 1960, and this is going to last for quite some time, 63 days. They will eventually have to close the stores down earlier. And a Woolworths was kind of like, imagine you go into a department store like Belk's, J.C. Penney, or something like that, and there's an area there where you can sit down and eat as well. Well, this happens, and a lot of people get involved in this movement. It's not going to be just African Americans. Some white people will come sit down, and they will say, "Hey, I don't want anything, but go ahead and get my guy or my lady friend over here something to eat. Then I might order something." And so this continues, like I said, for 63 days, and it becomes kind of like a popcorn movement where everybody in the entire country, at least particularly in the South, starts trying to do this as a means of fighting this racism, segregation, and things like that. Now, as you can see here, you have a lot of people in the back. These are your guys that are going to do some very bad things, like pour food over their heads, cuss at them, hit them, things like that. Violence did break out, but these people had to be nonviolent. So they sat there and kind of took it. And I know that's a hard thing for you guys to kind of grasp. If somebody's doing that to you, then how in the world are you going to sit there and take it? We have this mentality where you get hit, you're going to go ahead and fight back. These people didn't want to fight back. They couldn't fight back because if they fought back, then that was going to make them look bad. And instead, by taking this, these people that you can see right here in the back are the ones that look guilty, look evil, and they are completely exposed on national television for how bad things are in the country. And you can see here, we were talking about somebody getting stuff poured on him. He's got stuff poured on him. You can see it all on the back. He's probably getting called all types of names. You see another woman here, and they're having a conversation. And I'm not sure if she's a good person or a bad person. Who knows? But you can see people are outside of these restaurants and different other food chains or department stores saying in the lunch counter discrimination. It's wrong. They knew it was wrong. And the good thing was that the Brown versus Board of Education decision would eventually roll into this area and say that segregation was completely wrong. The last thing which we will talk about, if we have, now I don't think we're going to have time, so we'll start here tomorrow with the Freedom Rides. Running out of time. People, please continue to get your assignments done. I've uploaded a few assignments about the civil rights movement. I need you to get those done. Continue to work on things. Remember, no points will be taken off for any type of late work. If you need me, with me by any means necessary, I'm here to help. I care about you. I miss you guys. Hopefully, we'll be back to a normal schedule sometime soon. We'll see how things go. Let's hope for the best, but prepare for the worst in this case right now. Don't believe everything the media is telling you. There are a lot of conflicting stuff out there. Take care. Take some time to be around your loved ones enjoy them, let them know that you care for them and they care for you.